Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. It's time for a special spoiler podcast on Captain America Winter Soldier. I've got four other fantastic, fun reviewers with me today, and let's go ahead and go around the round table and get this party started. I'm Captain Logan. To my right is Vincent Haskins.
Yay, I'm Vince.
To his right is Brandon Grimm.
I'm Brandon.
And somewhere in cyberspace is the magnanimous Dan Torrey.
Hey, everybody.
And the always insightful Steve Baxi.
Hello, everyone.
And we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. I did a short review, and short for me, review the other day
It was like 2 hours.
with Sarah on this. That was a kind of a spoiler-free review. Now we're on to our spoiler podcast, Anything Goes. If you haven't seen the movie, I don't know why you clicked on this video, but make sure that you go and... I got to make sure and say funny things every time Brandon's drinking Coke. That's great.
Like a video about the Robin-esque girl?
If you've not seen this movie, you're not going to want to listen to this because we're going to spoil everything for you. And boy, is this a film that you don't want anything spoiled for you.
I second that.
I also want to encourage people who are watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and didn't get a chance to go to the theater and spend your hard-earned cash to see a wonderfully engaging film to not watch the episode from this week yet, because it will spoil everything for you from Captain America Winter Soldier, was put out only a week later. So make sure that if you've not watched it yet, you don't watch it unless you've seen Captain America. The watching order for that is the previous episode, then Captain America, then this week's episode. Make sure you watch it like that. And I also encourage people that are not watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to at least watch the last two episodes, because they inform this movie, they build on it pretty well, and it's nice supplemental material. Let's go ahead and now go round robin, starting with Vince. And as I always like to do, this is kind of our... This is kind of how we usually start this show. Kind of your favorite thing, and maybe something you didn't like or weren't sure about. Go ahead, Vince.
I really like that the big story, or the big character arc, isn't the one that the protagonist of the film, or isn't for the protagonist of the film. I like that the big character arc is really for Nick Fury here, and Captain America is the one who's inspiring most of this action, but I just like that the lesson is learned by somebody, but they allow Captain America to be steadfast. There's never really a big moment where he has an opportunity to change, because what's the point?
Well, I would make the argument that he has plenty of opportunities, he just doesn't take them. And then the same was true of the first movie, too. He's like Batman, he's not supposed to change.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is that I like that this is kind of an ensemble cast movie without necessarily having to be an ensemble cast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's what I like about it, is that we have like very discernible character arcs. And like for example, Hellboy, the second Hellboy movie, there really wasn't much of a character arc for Hellboy. He just kind of was. And I didn't much care for that, because it wasn't interesting. However, in this movie, it really works because he's making choices, and he's not just fighting. He is inspiring action, and I think this is really interesting. Something I didn't really care for, and maybe it's because it was set up somewhere else, but I wish there would have been a lead up to the computerized Arnim Zola. I liked it. I liked the way he was. I just kind of wish that there would have been more to say that this person, you could have a digitized person. So I want them to keep it the way it was. I just kind of wanted some little breadcrumbs put in leading us to Arnim Zola. So, am I saying that right?
I can kind of see why you'd say that. I guess we'll talk about that. Brandon, what would you say? We'll go round robin from we'll go kind of counterclockwise the way that the two guys in cyberspace are listed on the Skype call. Brandon, what would you say was something that you just thought really hit it out of the park, and something you weren't sure about? Go right ahead.
What I really thought hit it out of the park, to use your phrasing there, was how all aspects of this story worked together. To give you an example, I would say that the underlying story was very grounded for this movie, and I didn't think it didn't set things too high and out there like in the superhero world. It was something I could get behind in like a real world situation. Also, the different ideas and ideals that were portrayed in this movie are have all some sort of basis, no matter how small, in reality and real things that are going on today in this day and age. So I felt that it really kind of talked about a lot of the things that we're going through right now and things that we're going to have to look at very soon in the future. And some of that kind of the false flag stuff that's going on, where you think you're working for one organization, but really there's an undermining of that organization.
Yeah, and that thing of that theme of compartmentalization,
Exactly.
where everybody knows something, but nobody seems to know everything.
Right, and that was a very interesting theme through the movie. Something that I wasn't sure about. Well, I'll just say this here. I mentioned this to you the other day.
Yeah, you and I had a really cool conversation. I wish we'd recorded.
It indeed I do too. But I'll say this. I want to know. There's a scene in the movie where the higher ups of the organization who make the calls, they vote.
Yeah.
The one woman who Black Widow impersonates, where did she go? If Black Widow's her, where is she?
She killed her.
They must have accepted her before they all got into the room, and then she doesn't know why they intercepted her, and nobody knows that she's there. Yeah, we never hear what happened to her.
But we see her as a hologram twice earlier in the movie, so we know she's a real person.
Right.
Well, as we've seen in the past, chloroform and knocking people out really doesn't have lasting effects. So,
indeed. Okay, so I diffuse to the next person here.
Defer, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Diffuse.
Dan Torrey.
Maybe Dan's really angry.
Dan, something you loved and something you weren't sure about.
Something I really loved about this was the flavor or tone of this movie, I suppose. I like that we're able to do things that are sort of outside of the traditional superhero kind of mold with these Marvel movies now, where we have like a political espionage drama movie with Captain America and happens to be in it. I think that's really cool. And those are the kind of movies I really like. I like that genre in particular. I'm a big James Bond fan. In movies like that. So it was cool for me to see that sort of flavor brought to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know they've done it for a long time in the Captain America comics, but the first movie certainly wasn't like that and shouldn't have been really. But I like that we got that here. I was very happy about that. And one of the things I didn't like, or I suppose wasn't sure about, was I was asking myself this whole movie where Hawkeye is. He's like the other major S.H.I.E.L.D. agent character from Avengers, and he just wasn't anywhere to be found. And he's one of my favorites too. I love Hawkeye.
Yeah, and he's a major operative for S.H.I.E.L.D. So like, where does he go when S.H.I.E.L.D. disbands? And I think part of the problem is we see between this and the TV show where pretty much all of the major agents we've ever seen, where they go and what happens to them.
Yeah, exactly. He was the one character I was missing a lot, and the other one I suppose might have been Red Skull to some degree. Not that I wanted Alexander Pierce to end up being the Red Skull necessarily. But I would have liked to see the organization that he started circumventing S.H.I.E.L.D. like him sort of come back and, be involved with that to some degree. But, maybe they're saving for the third one, or I don't know what they're going to do now that they supposedly, Hugo Weaving doesn't want to do it anymore. I don't know what that all situation is, but we'll see.
Yeah, you're right, because that would have been a really good opportunity to get Red Skull in there without having to bring Weaving back since he doesn't want to. But I don't know. We'll talk about that too, because I have a bit of a theory about that.
Sure.
Steve!
Okay, well, just really quickly to answer two things from Dan. I actually really did want Alexander Pierce to be the Red Skull, or at least like a comic book version where the Red Skull is in his mind, like in the Winter Soldier comic. And the reason Hawkeye isn't in this movie is supposedly going to be explained in Avengers 2. Apparently there's some big backstory. That doesn't solve the problem now, but apparently it's there.
Well, I would have been fine with it if just one person said, "Hey, I wonder where he's at." It was weird that he didn't even get a mention in the movie, given that it was all S.H.I.E.L.D. and that S.H.I.E.L.D. gets totally destroyed.
And his kind of girlfriend was one of the main characters in the movie.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't fix the problem. I'm just saying, like, they're going to try and explain it later, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. But one thing I really did like about this movie is that the comic does this wonderful analysis of like the philosophical persistence question. So it's all about like what makes personal identity, and I thought that was in this film completely. Like every character has their own version of the persistence question, but it's all ideological and not necessarily internal, which I thought was really fascinating. One thing I didn't like is that the Winter Soldier's backstory is too vague.
Yeah.
Like it's really inconsistent about what exactly happened to him. And that makes for like confusing scenes. Like, does he have super strength? Does he not? How far does his
Why
wife
does he
go? Where does his
does he
memory
have
start? Stuff
metal
like that.
Why does he have one metal arm but not two?
Well, I guess that's just that's just from the comic, but like,
No, I know,
uh,
but I mean, like anybody coming in that doesn't know the comic is going to ask that question because we know why Steve Rogers has the powers he has, and we know that he got at least the beginnings of his abilities from Arnim Zola, and there's no explanation of well when he fell and when he fell did he break his arm or something or did he lose his arm somehow or something?
All we really get.
There's no mention of that, so like you do have to wonder. I think anytime you have a character that has one prosthetic limb, you got to wonder what happened to that limb. A lot of the time, what happened to that limb is hugely vital to their characterization even. So frankly, given that we have Nick Fury who has a mention of somebody he trusted somebody and then he lost his eye and then later there's even a thing done with that, it's sort of weird that in that same movie there's no mention of what happened to somebody's prosthetic later to a limb that went prosthetic.
Well, speaking as somebody who's coming into this without having read the comics myself, like the only thing we got was basically that the procedure has already started. That was a line in the movie,
right?
And that was all we got on that. So I was actually wondering that what happened to his arm.
I think a lot of people coming in cold because I'm about to talk about cryostasis. I think a lot of
Winter Soldier.
A lot of people who came in cold and didn't know anything about Winter Soldier beforehand probably even missed, because I've talked to a couple that the whole cryostasis thing. I think a lot of people, because that was so subtle and understated. There's a couple of mentions of it, but if you blink, you miss it. The biggest place, and I didn't even notice this until I saw it a second time. The biggest place that you notice it is there's a picture of him in cryofreeze, and if you miss that, you might wonder how he survived this long.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not sure they made all that explicit enough.
Oh crap! I had a point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was like, go ahead, Brandon. Now go ahead, Cap. Wait, what was I gonna say? No idea.
That's why we keep a pen and paper around.
The other
times, Vince.
The other line on the cryostasis, they made one mention was he's been off ice too long. He's been off the ice too long, indicating that he was going back into some sort
exactly.
of
But like I said, there's just not there's
not a lot for us.
It's not even that it's not mentioned often enough. It's that it's not in front of us really.
Right. I didn't exactly know what that meant until I had to really think about it.
Hold on, Vince has something to say, so we need to all stop talking. Go ahead, Vince.
I kind of felt like they were doing this intentionally, not giving us too much because they want to bring it back in another movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I really feel like this is setting up for, especially with the end credits.
Yes, I feel the same.
Easter egg that they had, because there wasn't much there. It was just saying like this isn't over. Like you guys, you're gonna find out more about this. I don't know when we're gonna find out more about it. Maybe it'll be called Captain America: The Winter Soldier is wintry again or something.
Rise of the Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
snow is falling or whatever.
Yeah, can we maybe not have Winter Soldier in the title 2 times?
I would agree.
It was kind of, as we talked about, it was kind of misleading to be all Winter Soldier, because it wasn't necessarily an origin story of Winter Soldier.
Well,
can I make a point about the title too? Because I really like it. I want to say something about it.
Yeah, I do too, and I don't think misleading is the right word. I think misdirection is the right word, and I think they did that on purpose so that nobody would call who the real villain was, who was just the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Go ahead, Dan.
I think, I mean, I've seen other people mention this online too, so I'm not like brilliant for coming up with this or anything, but in my political science classes, we've been reading Thomas Paine lately, and he's the guy who wrote Common Sense and inspired the American Revolution in some ways and stuff like that. And he had I forget what the exact paper was, but he wrote a paper describing someone who's a summer soldier, who is someone who only fights for a cause when it's easy, and the winter soldier is someone who fights for a cause no matter what. And I think that's really cool.
Fantastic! Because I keep talking to people that keep asking me, okay, Captain Logan, you know everything about comics? And I'm like, well, I read comics, you don't, so to you, I probably sound like I know everything about comics. and Captain Logan, why is he called the Winter Soldier? And my answer is just cryo-free. That's about the best I can come up with.
And that's what we talked about.
Yeah. And the only other thing is, well, he lost his identity when he fell in some snow.
He's part penguin.
Well,
what's Spring Soldier?
It's a soldier that just got started. Really, it's like a spring chicken, you know.
Okay, and a fall soldier is one who's just ending.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
think Fall
Okay.
Soldier is what he was when he fell out of the train.
By the way, can I just mention, and this is not a problem or anything, but I've never seen a movie with this much falling.
Mm.
Every 10 minutes, somebody's dropping out of the sky in this movie.
Or dropping the elevator.
Because the Falcon needs to be relevant and worthwhile.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point though, because we don't get the Falcon's wings until like the third act. Yeah,
Yeah.
people falling out of the sky constantly, and find out it's like, well, there's something for him to do because there's always somebody dropping.
Which I was so pleased that the Falcon was in this, mainly because of all those Captain America and the Falcon comics.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, a Captain America and the Falcon movie!
And Captain America is a character that everybody knows, but nobody knows a lot about. And one of the things that these movies are great for is mining that material and like really educating people in I think really great ways in the way they're realizing these characters on this material and who these characters are and stuff. And I mean, like, even me, I didn't know anything about Falcon. And I mean, like, I had that with you. I knew that was a title. I knew he was a sidekick. That's all I knew. And he was maybe my favorite thing about this movie. He was just fantastic.
That's the thing about the Falcon in the comics is that like he was kind of like Cap's buddy, not necessarily a sidekick. Which I mean, he's the B role. I mean, it was kind of like saying, "Hey, here's Captain America, and here's this other character we want you guys to like. So let's put them in a comic book together."
Well, I think it was exactly the same way in the movie too.
Yeah, like that's what I liked about the Captain America and the Falcon stuff. I mean, not that they were all good, but to say that that's what I liked the comics was here were two superheroes that tended to work together.
Yeah.
And I mean, his costume was red, his costume was blue. They both had white in their costumes. I was like, it's American.
Cool. Yeah, boy, I just thought he was so charismatic.
Yeah,
He was.
He was interesting. Especially, I like that how they set it up. He was an old flyboy. He's retired from the military. And then I never said I was a pilot.
Yeah, that was.
And
good.
when I saw that, I was like, that was kind of
He
corny,
made
but I
reference to
don't
his
care at all.
wingman.
Yeah,
And that was all we got. And that sets
Oh,
up
his
the
wingman.
wings.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's the phrase he used. He's like, my wingman. You get the idea he's a pilot, but later on, I never said I was a pilot. And you're like, oh my goodness, he didn't.
Well, and if you're like me and you knew he was going to be the Falcon, you're like, oh, wingman, haha. But I didn't realize
Yeah,
it was going to
same
actually
here.
mean anything.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It wasn't until a few minutes later when I realized when he said wingman, he meant a person who flew with him. I was like, his wingman. Well, the guy that goes out and helps him get girls.
Oh, I got that immediately since he was talking about how he just felt like he was powerless to do anything. Because you think about two people flying in planes, and you've got your guy in the other plane, and he
Right.
gets shot down. That's where
Yeah.
I went to.
When he said that, I was like, oh, wingman. Duh.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a colloquialism in our world. People saying wingman
Yeah.
to refer to their
Well,
friend.
absolutely.
One of the things this movie does really well is people always feel like real people to me, even with these really kind of outlandish situations.
Mhm.
And this movie manages to be both really heavy and light at the same time. What I mean is, like it's really thrilling. It's really intense, but then the comedy beats don't undercut that. They just feel like people trying to diffuse tense situations with comedy.
There's I think you've hit the nail on the head for why I liked Black Widow in this movie so much.
Me too.
Because the thing about the Avengers that I never really liked was that I felt like her personality and the things that she's able to do and the way people treated her, these things didn't mesh. They all just seemed like, well, this is how they're going to treat her. And it doesn't necessarily correspond to anything she does within the movie. However, in this Captain America movie, she's kind of lighthearted. She's given a little bit of friendly raillery to Captain America, but at the end of the day, we know that she has her own set of orders, and she will carry those orders out regardless of who her friends are. And those things come through in the movie. She is all business when it's business time.
Which it turns out, of course, is the whole idea that Hydra is preying on.
Yes. And she is able to turn it off like that. Why? Because she's a spy. And she's able of showing varying different emotions and able to manipulate those emotions with other people. And I thought that was really interesting that we got that in this movie, but not the Avengers, where it needed to also be.
To your point, Vince, the scene where she's doing the other thing, her other mission, and Captain America's like, "We need to get out of here. Like, you're causing problems. This could result in something bad." And then they get out of there after it explodes.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "That's on me," and he goes, "You're damn right it is."
Yeah.
Like, she was trying to be all lighthearted, and he's just like, "Look, there's a time and a place."
Which is also part of her character arc, leading her
Exactly.
to her ultimate
and
decision.
not just character arc, but also that's, you know, I'm watching that whole scene when I first see it and thinking this is kind of fun, but I'm not sure what the point of the scene is. And when you get to the end of the movie, you find out that actually sets up both the major plot points and all of the thematic stuff through the whole movie. Dan and Steve, jump in anytime.
Okay. I just didn't want to interrupt. I'm sorry. I can't see you, so I don't want to like step on anybody's toes. But
Yes, it's totally cool. Limitations of Skype.
One of the things that I really admired, in addition to all the things that you guys said, I mean, I really, really liked this movie. I think I'm kind of high on it because I've come out of, you know, I don't have as long of a perspective on it as I do the other Marvel movies, but I think I like this movie more than the Avengers, just because it has the right kind of for me.
Me too.
Genre-wise, story-wise, all the things that it addresses, I think, are very legitimate concerns in today's world. I like where it comes down on them in such a way where it doesn't completely condemn or say that, like, you know, having a secure world is evil. It's that there is an evil way of going about achieving that. And I think that's very nuanced and very complicated, very mature way to look at it. And I really like that about it. But other than like the story stuff, the action in this, how good is it? Captain America is just as cool as Thor's hammer, the Iron Man suit. It makes a case for it being like one of the cool Marvel icon object weapon things, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
In the Avengers, it looked really cool. Some cool things, but in this, like, it was bouncing all over the place. Cap had it magneted on his back and stuff. It was
Dan, you're cutting in out on us a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I was just talking about Captain America Shield. I
Yeah,
love
no,
the way
no.
it was used.
I heard
Yeah.
you. I just wanted you to know that we've got a weird connection with you.
Oh, sorry. But yeah.
So stop that.
It's cool. I don't know what you can do about it. I just thought I'd let
Well, on kind of this note of the Captain America versus like the Avengers initiative and some of the other movies, I think they were playing this up. You really get the idea that while they're in this one organization, they're really all about themselves and they're all about doing their own thing. Especially like Tony Stark, he's totally full of himself. You know, the Black Widow, she's used to being a spy and kind of working on her own. This type of thing. The Hulk, he likes to be reserved. He doesn't like people. He doesn't like to be around him. Captain America is kind of like this guy who wants people to rally around so that, you know, you can have a plan with everybody. I really enjoyed that part of the aspect of things.
And of course that all goes into how he wants everybody to know everything.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
He wants the truth there all out for everybody to see. I think that while I agree with you, Dan, that and I can't believe I'm saying this, I do think this is a better movie than Avengers. And well, I'm actually not completely surprised I'm saying that. I like the Avengers, but it's a little thin comparatively, especially, and even to a couple other Marvel movies. It's a little bit thin on characterization, because it's kind of more of a novelty picture of, hey, look, we got all these guys together. Whedon's doing his best in the writing, but I feel like just getting all those people together in the same movie. But the thing I am really surprised about is that I was as entertained watching this as I was the Avengers, and that like I said, it gets heavy, it gets incredibly intense, and I think it is some of, if not the, and again, I'm with Dan, just like you. I'm saying this having just seen it a couple times, and maybe I won't feel like this later, but right now I kind of feel like this is maybe the best action I've ever seen in a superhero movie. And it's not just because the choreography and everything is so freaking solid and intense and gripping, but it's also because I care about all of what's going on. So it isn't, you know, I've rarely seen this much action in an action movie where the thing doesn't degenerate into a big action set piece. The action scenes never go on too long. There's always an emotional weight to them. I always feel like something's at stake.
Mm-hmm. You know, at some point early in the movie, I think I'm about to say something different than what I was thinking. But at some point early in the movie, I
I'm
thought,
going to contradict myself, but you wouldn't know that because you're not in my brain.
wow, the
We're in
editing
that
in
guy's
this is
brain.
too fast and too close. But then
I had the same thing the first time, but not the second time.
and I had that with the first scene or first action scene in the movie, but then throughout I didn't have a problem with it. Because they started doing things that I thought were really interesting with this movie makes you believe that a guy with a shield can take down a giant souped up heliplane or something, whatever they want to call it.
Helicarrier?
Yeah, well,
You never read a Shield comic?
no, they're on the helicarrier. That was a big plane that he took.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So
I'm just messing with you.
it's a different thing.
How cool is it too that I hear comic book fans say all the time that you can't do 3 villains in a movie, and this movie did it perfectly. We got Batroc the Leaper, Zola, and Alexander Pierce, 3 villains, and they were all great, used
And we
very
got
well and
Crossbones.
effectively. Yes, I forgot about him.
Yeah, we
That's
got
what they did
like
before.
yeah, we got like page right off the page Crossbones and Batroc, and not Alexander Pierce wasn't off the page, but close enough, right? I guess I just want to jump in and say that I thought why the action was so interesting is that every time I thought it was degenerating, like okay, move on, get over with the scene, they always do something really fascinating with it. Like with the opening boat scene, I thought this is cool, but I don't know what's going on. But then we see Black Widow getting information, then immediately cut to Nick Fury and why it's an important plot point. And we did get really far away from this, but I did also want to mention that the Winter Soldier isn't distinctly Russian in this, and that completely destroys why he's called the Winter Soldier, which isn't in the movie at all, which I think it should have been.
I wondered about that myself, but I like what
Yeah, but
Dan
if it's
was
the
saying.
Dan thing, I wish that was in the movie. But
If a Winter Soldier is a thing, I get that. That's perfect. But I kind of wish they would have mentioned that. It doesn't bother me that he's not Russian, but it bothers me that they have plumbed something and then didn't give a reason for why they didn't use
also
that.
now they've
He
done it
does
twice.
speak Russian in the movie, though.
Yeah, he speaks Russian,
At one
and
point.
he uses a Soviet rifle in all of his missions.
Yes, but here's something that I just
Because
remembered
it's a
that I
good
noticed.
gun.
I noticed this though. Here's the thing. Speaking to more of the point that everything is kind of grounded in reality and what's going on right now. Black Widow mentions when she hands the paperwork over to Captain America that she called in some favors from Kiev. She got the paperwork from the Soviet bloc. She got it from over there, it was Cold War paperwork. She called in some favors. She got it from there.
Right.
So I mean, I didn't understand because I thought that in the first Captain America we were dealing with Germans, but why did he then come from Soviet Russia?
Well, I mean, maybe they could have just given a reason. Maybe Hydra kind of moved over into a secluded part of Russia and started back up.
We
Who
do
knows?
know from the mid-credit scene that Hydra's got a bunch of pockets left in the world after this.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's one of the things I love about this movie is that as big as it gets, as much of a take down a huge 70-year-old operation thing, where like I've seen so many movies that that's too simple. You get to the end and they're not completely decimated because they wouldn't be. It wouldn't make any sense, you know. I mean, like it always feels grounded, you know. Even in this over the how do you have the Arnim Zola scene in this movie and have a movie that feels completely real to me? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I rarely do I see a suspension of disbelief done this well.
Well, and to your point there, the Red Skull cut off one head and two more will be in its place. You would have to have more than just your inside shield people. You've got all these other pockets everywhere that could come back.
They would have contingencies.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that speaks directly to the cut off one head.
I think that this is potentially. I want to go to my Red Skull theory, which isn't even a theory so much as just what I think they're likely to do. What I mean is this is very vague if I'm using the word theory, but this really strikes me as a great opportunity for a actual dictionary textbook trilogy, because there's no reason we can't bring Arnim Zola back. You can't tell me he's not backed up someplace.
Right.
So I think third movie, it's likely that we get finally the stuck in a robot body version of him. And considering that Bucky was established in the first movie, we got a little bit of his backstory of being reprogrammed in the second movie, and then at the end of this, which by the way, the one thing I really, really, really resist a lot about this movie is just putting that in the after credits. Why couldn't that have closed the movie? That's really, really ridiculous to me. And it struck me as a scene they shot for the movie that in hindsight they put at the end. It sure felt that way to me. But anyway, so you've got that, because it's too important to leave out. Like when you wait all the way through the credits, you're like, really? I could have guessed that. But anybody that didn't see it, it might not occur to them that that's where the next one's going. And so this feels like we really do have kind of a 3-act story working here. And I don't think Hydra's done. I think that they were telling us that with the mid-credit scene too, that third movie we're still going to be dealing with Hydra. I really think that Winter Soldier is probably finally going to become a good guy. And I think I'm also saying this just because I liked watching it so much. This seems like the heavy second, darker second act of a third act thing. This is the Empire Strikes Back of this franchise. Really feels that way to me.
I agree. I think it's going to be interesting too to see moving forward what Hydra does, because we see Baron von Strucker in the credit sequence, before the final one with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and apparently they're going to be in Avengers 2 as well. Baron von Strucker and Hydra, so it'll be very interesting to see how that plays in and what they'll do with them moving forward.
Oh, and with Ultron?
Yes.
Dan, what are the twins? What is that? I don't know what that is.
That's Wanda and
Wanda, yeah.
Oh wait, that's them. That's
yes,
who that's supposed to. Okay, I didn't realize that. I mean, I guess how you say that. Okay,
and I guess their word for mutants is miracles in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's why he said it's an age of miracles.
A lot of people thought they were going to go with Inhumans.
That's what I had thought, especially since the direction and where the comics are going now, where Inhumans are basically mutants anyway. They're popping up all over the world through the Terrigen mist and stuff. But
and
I don't know.
Silver was married to one of the Inhumans for a while, so
weird. Mm-hmm. Dan, well, now I feel stupid that I didn't catch on to that, but I guess I just assumed that they must be I was trying to think of weird twin villain characters. I guess for some reason I should have looked that up before this. And every time I think about it, I'm like, I need to look that up. But
Wanda twin powers
activate. Yeah. Dan, do you think it would have been too on the nose to call the mutants in this universe Marvels?
Oh, I would have liked that.
That's where I would have gone with it.
Yeah, I love that. Dan, what do you think? Steve, what do you think?
I think that's a little on the nose for me personally. But
well, the thing is, I'm a big fan of the series Marvels, and they do it there. So I think you could. Well, I mean, they still have mutants in that, but I don't know. I think they could have done that. I think it would have been cool. But whatever, I mean, I'm right, Dan. But you can think.
Totally. I'm with Ken.
But
I'm just kidding. We're ganging up.
One of the things you were saying about the Cap trilogy thing, I think that's a very good idea, and I think that's where they're potentially going with this. Captain America has the best solo films of the cohesive whole at this point, I think, out of all of the characters. Just because this was good and the first one was pretty good. I have more problems with the first one than I do this one. But if this holds together as well as the second movie was, and the people who are involved with this one coming back for the third one, so I'm pretty confident it's going to be as good.
Well, I'm glad we got the same directors, because I thought their style was just spot on for this. Yeah. Although, there's a part of me that kind of hopes that the third one doesn't also feel like a spy espionage thing. I mean, I kind of doubt that it will, considering that we've gotten rid of S.H.I.E.L.D., and even if we still have some semblance of them left, which we have to, there's a TV show with the word S.H.I.E.L.D. in it. Which I can't wait to see where all that goes now.
It'll be Agents of S.W.O.R.D.
S.W.O.R.D. was really cool to bring in, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially since Whedon created them in Astonishing X-Men. I would not be surprised at all if they brought them in.
Me neither.
One,
Well, and also because hand is a big sword thing.
yes. One of the cool things that I thought directorial wise, and I don't know if I'm like reaching or anything here, but did anyone else think that they lingered on Bucky holding Captain America's shield at one point in front of him for a pretty long
Yes.
time?
No, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
What about it?
I think it might be foreshadowing. Like once Chris Evans is done, they're going to kill
Oh
him and make Bucky Captain America.
Well,
no, they're definitely gonna do that. I would bet you
well,
money
well,
that's
they
where
did
that's
it
going.
before. Is the thing.
Hmm.
Like in Captain America: The First Avenger, there's a shot of Bucky holding the shield and the gun in the exact same pose he has on a Captain
Oh,
America
really?
cover. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Didn't
catch that.
realize that.
Crap.
And then they
Maybe.
released a still of Bucky holding the shield, and it's like a downloadable wallpaper you can get on their website. So they're definitely pushing for Bucky to become Captain America, especially because he has a 9-picture deal.
No, Vince.
Interesting.
There's a good reason that we're thinking that, and that's because Chris Evans is done after Avengers 3, and
Oh.
so and he and we're also losing Downey after that. These guys can't do this stuff forever. Also, Evans doesn't want to act anymore. He wants to direct, so he's retiring from acting. But they are going to do one of two things. They're either going to recast him or one of three things. They're either going to recast him directly, which since they're doing Winter Soldier, unlikely. They'll move him upstairs and have him be the director of Shield or something, which I think is also less likely than killing him off and then maybe recasting him later when they inevitably bring him back from the dead. Now, you and I have talked about this in a GNN recently, Vince, but I still think it would be cool if we had a universe where dead is actually dead. They have a really good chance to have those kinds of stakes here, so that we don't get 41 movies into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then suddenly nobody is scared of death because they all know they're coming back.
Well, I mean, if they kill off Steve Rogers, then the guy that played, I forget his name, but the guy that played Bucky, the luckiest person that could have possibly been cast in a supporting cast.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But no, Dan, you make a great point with him lingering on the show. When you said that, I thought you were complaining about it. No, I thought it was a foregone conclusion. I mean, like that he would become Captain America, because I mean, if you think about it, like how I mean, yeah, we're adapting Falcon and stuff, but I mean, how much history are we skipping between the first and the second movie? A Winter Soldier is a very recent thing to adapt.
Yeah, that was like '05, I think.
Yeah, it was really recent. And I mean, like, there's a lot of that going on. We just adapted Extremis, which was about the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was really cool, like little foreshadowing things like that. And I would really like to see a Winter Soldier solo movie before that happens, to flesh out the backstory that you guys were talking about, because I missed that a little bit too. I'm a fan of that character from the comics. I like Winter Soldier a lot. So, people like Joe Johnston, who directed the first movie, that expressed interest in doing something like that. I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy I'd want to see directed, but I think that would be real cool.
Yeah, I don't think his sensibilities are really dark enough for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not sure. But one of the things, let me go back to a point that I started to make earlier, that I think is interesting about the same directors coming back for 3. This is a brother duo. Is that the first 2 movies are great companion pieces, but are in practically entirely different genres of movies, which I think is really fascinating. That they pulled it off. I mean, my favorite thing about this this movie, besides just Falcon, my favorite broad thing about Falcon. Give him a movie, seriously. That guy's so charismatic. I'm sorry, I'm stepping all over because I want to talk about him again now. But anyway, the thing that is so great about this movie is that it manages to be a direct sequel to that, and deal with all kinds of stuff from the first movie that I didn't think we'd touch. I could not believe they did an 85-year-old Peggy. I couldn't believe they went there. That we got the time to really stop and live with these characters, and have those great moments. But if the same 2 guys are coming back for the third one, I hope that they're able to create something that doesn't look just like their last movie. I'm hoping that it can be yet again kind of another genre of film. I don't think we should have 2 of the same thing right after we did a World War II piece.
I was going to say, do you remember when I called that I thought they might go there with the 85-year-old Peggy when we watched it the first time? When I watched Captain America 1 for the first time just a couple weeks ago, And I said, I wonder if they would bring her back because it's possible she'd still be living.
Right. Well, and I don't want to diminish what you're saying, but I was surprised they didn't do it in the first one.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, especially because that's one of the only things I liked about the 1990 movie
Yeah.
was that
And you talked about that day
was
too.
that
Yeah.
he comes back to the or he comes to the present in that case the late 80s early 90s and his girlfriend is an elderly lady. I remembered thinking with First Avenger, it's cool to bookend it like this, but I wish we'd get to see him live in the present a little bit.
Mhm.
And I don't know why, but I figured that they would just kind of brush past that stuff, and it's really nice that they gave us those moments in this, but fully integrated. The movie doesn't interrupt itself to do that stuff.
Right.
It's part of his arc, I guess, where he's kind of learning that he can't trust this nation like he used to trust his nation.
Yeah, and
That the
isn't
world
it?
has changed.
Yeah.
And isn't it so well? And also that all of the people that he used to care about and rely on are gone, and it's like he knew that, but now he's sitting there watching it. The
Mhm.
fact that she had dementia tore me up.
Yeah, it tore me
Yeah.
up too. I speaking to that though, it took for me. I was watching this movie, and then all of a sudden it was going along. Then all of a sudden, for me, it felt like the action started. And then I thought about it, and I was thinking to myself, well, the beginning might have been a little bit draggier, if that's a word, than what we've got right now.
It
but
is if you're Captain Logan.
Well, it didn't. It didn't bother me.
Which
As
you're
soon
not,
as the
but you
action
can have
got
it.
started, I didn't feel like the beginning of the movie had dragged. I felt like that it kind of just had a natural progression from kind of setting this up to all of a sudden getting into the action.
It
If that
felt
makes
organic.
sense.
Like I didn't
Yeah,
feel like
organic's a good word.
I didn't feel like it just suddenly started. Although because I felt like it was
Well,
compelling and
yes.
it brought you to it.
It did, but
So-
that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a part where there's not much action. You're getting a little bit of story, and then there's a part where you're getting the rest of the movie has more action in
But
it.
see, that's the thing is that in a popcorn movie that isn't about the storytelling and isn't about the characters, but they kind of pretend like it is so that they can have something to tie all the stuff together.
Right.
You think about it in those terms. You think about, okay, now we've got character stuff and
Right.
now we have action stuff. This movie doesn't have character stuff and action stuff. It has character stuff, and sometimes people have to do action
Right.
to make the character
it
stuff
serves
happen.
the purpose in this film,
And so,
I love that.
Guys, I thought that what happens to Nick Fury was like the most cringe-worthy in a good way action thing I've ever seen, or one of them. Yeah, like I was so on the edge of my seat during that. I couldn't. I couldn't believe how long that scene went. That they're still trying to get in his car, and they're still trying to get into his car.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
That was great.
I loved that. I couldn't believe it went that far.
I did kind of
love
have a problem with that scene.
I don't care. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
No, my only problem was that the Winter Soldier shows up on a street corner where he could not possibly have known that Nick Fury was going to get there.
Yeah, I had the same thing, but
Teleportation.
I love all the stuff right up to that point. You know,
Well,
like
I mean, keep in mind, Winter Soldier works for S.H.I.E.L.D. in secret, and I assume Alexander Pierce would have had tabs on his car.
Oh, as a matter
Yeah,
of fact,
yeah.
that's true because.
what do you say to that, Steve?
Well, the
Well, he
could have
underlying
airdropped.
group, Hydra has hired him,
Right.
so they knew exactly where he was at that point.
Well, yeah, but like they set up
Hired-
the car so they were trying to get on that very specific corner. The Winter Soldier doesn't like work for S.H.I.E.L.D. He just shows up when they need him. So for them to constantly be on the move like that unexpectedly, it's weird that the Winter Soldier would know exactly what corner Nick Fury was about to turn.
Mm.
But we don't know where he jumped in from and stuff.
Well,
you
like we
know?
see him on the middle of the street just waiting for Nick Fury's car.
Right, but we don't know how long he's been standing there.
Right, but
Yeah,
He could have parachuted in.
No,
He'd been standing there for 20 minutes. He had no idea Nick Fury was going to go that direction.
No, right, but I doubt he was standing there that long. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he might have been on his way, and then at this point, finally his car is moving, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to stop right here because he's on his way. Like like depending on when he got there, he potentially like if he was coming from the other direction, he potentially could have been standing there for like a minute or two.
True.
But no, Steve, I thought the same thing while I was watching it.
I think he was just standing there shooting cars.
Yeah,
While
That's
yeah.
what he was doing.
Like a fish in a barrel.
While we're
I'm
on-
practicing for later.
While we're on the subject of Nick Fury, I loved everything about Samuel L. Jackson in his performance of this movie. Because I love now that Whedon kind of did a Samuel L. Jackson-ism in Avengers where he gets to swear. That we're going to let him do that at least once in every movie now, and that's awesome. Because one of the worst things about the Star Wars prequels and him being in them is he just plays a monotone guy that doesn't swear at all.
And he could be anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And Samuel L. Jackson actually like lends his performance, his personality to this character, in some ways, and I really like that about it.
That's something that's interesting. I agree with you in this movie, but with Avengers, with Iron Man, I felt like it was Samuel L. Jackson in an eye patch, and
Not Nick Fury.
and not Nick Fury. But in this movie, this was Nick Fury, as you said, with the flavor of Samuel L. Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that Sammy J pulled it through in this one and convinced me he is a guy who is the leader of an international spy ring, or whatever you want to call him. And that's same way with the Black Widow. These two characters really got a time to shine in this and show us what they can do. Well, I suppose the actors did, but the characters got more to do, so the actors could really bring their A game.
Well, it's almost like the movie, and I'll explain what I mean by this. It's almost like the movie is both, is both hindering stuff from the other movies and heightening them at the same time. Because with their performances, with Scarlett Johansson and Samuel L. Jackson in this, I felt the same way you did. I felt like we had a script that was finally dealing with them the way they make sense. They felt like they had the script that went with the performances that they wanted to give. And so it's almost like, you go back to those earlier movies and you're like, well, they wish they had better material in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that stuff is bad, but now I have something to compare it to. Now I have something that I thought absolutely gave them like we know that Ultimate Fury is sort of based on Samuel L. Jackson, and he was playing a character before that I agree with you felt like Sam Jackson doing Nick Fury. This felt like the character based on Sam Jackson played by Sam Jackson. But also where it heightens those movies is I feel like now that we know that Hydra had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. all this time, I feel like there's a lot of things about several Marvel movies before this that make more sense, and it informed a lot of stuff. The Iron Man 2 thing is obvious with the Senator, but then you have stuff like why was the council, the S.H.I.E.L.D. Council at the end of Avengers so anti-Fury the way they were? Like, all the stuff the council does at the end of Avengers is way more interesting after you see this movie.
Well, then also the council pushing for the Hydra-based weapons in Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. And you already see the line that Nick Fury won't cross in Avengers that they're trying to get him to cross. And they're doing, a lot of them are doing Hydra's bidding. Then you get to, or all of them, or they all Hydra. And then you get to this movie, and you really see that line because they already know he won't cross it. That's why they try to kill him when they do.
Well, here's a question though. If that's the case, though, we see the council though. The council doesn't know they're working for Hydra.
Don't they?
But they don't because they get killed by Hydra. At the end.
Do all of them?
Well,
oh yeah, you're right.
all of them
Because
except
the guy,
for the one.
That's right, because the guy throws his.
Them in.
Yeah. No, you're right.
On the secret. He's when they say.
But they're not Shield agents, are they?
But they're the council.
In charge of Shield.
I thought the council was all
they're presiding over Shield.
No, I know, but see, okay, Dan, help me out because you probably know this. I thought. Dan, I just assume you know everything I don't know. I thought that the council was like, and this would explain, if I'm right, why none of them are Hydra besides the main guy, because he's not on the council. He's the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
I thought that they were other like politicians, like senators.
I just sort of assumed that the people in this movie, I'd probably have to go rewatch them again and examine the details, but I thought it was my impression in this movie that the people that Pierce was talking to were like the UN Security Council and like the people that, enforce international law and protect the security of the world, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is like their arm of enforcement. similar to like NATO is and stuff like that. And in the real
Oh, so they're not all American then?
right? Yeah, because there was clearly like someone who was Asian descent. There was someone who I think the
Middle
late
Eastern.
yeah exactly. So I'm not sure if those are the same group of people that Nick Fury talks to in Avengers, mainly because I don't remember what they're called and their faces are all shadowy and blacked out. So I
By the way, why are they? I'm sorry. Why the holograms in this? Why are most of them played by like minor bad guys in things I've watched?
yeah, that the Dark Knight guy was there, wasn't he?
Mr. Lau is in there. I'm like, oh, he's Hydra. I was really surprised he
Yeah.
wasn't. And then,
Well-
like the guy, what was it? Whitmore from Lost was in there. Like the bad guy in Lost
Misdirection.
that keeps trying to find the island. And then this isn't a bad guy, but the Indian guy was the guy in the construct at the beginning of Matrix Revolutions that kept talking about that kept talking about Hindu philosophy. Yeah, well, like just I kept going. This is weird. I recognize all of these people.
While we're on the subject of people in that room, how great was Robert Redford in this movie? I thought he elevated this movie performance-wise. He was so good. He played it straight. He wasn't like a goofy, over-the-top comic book villain at any point. You could have pulled him out of a 70s political espionage movie and thrown him in here, and it would have, that's basically what happened. It was awesome. I love that.
That's the thing, is that it's not a superhero movie except for when it needs to be.
Well, here's my take though on these guys. I think for me it sounds more like they're senators because they make a reference to Pierce says to Samuel L. Jackson's character. Now I'm drawing a blank on.
That's Nick Fury. Keep going.
Nick Fury.
Oh, read the poster.
He says to Nick, he goes, Nick, you're not asking for a favor. You're asking for a congressional hearing. And so it seems to me like the people that he's talking to, that's kind of like a congressional hearing.
Okay, but then
that's how the UN works.
Okay.
The UN, like, everybody sends representatives from all of their countries and like represent each other, and they have a congressional kind of thing.
That's true, but what would you call that?
Brandon, he's a political science major. He
Sure,
knows more
that's
than you.
great. Well,
he's a
what would you
professional
call that?
boring
Would you call
guy.
that a congressional hearing? Would you call that a UN Security Council meeting?
Yeah, but they're not. When he says congressional hearing, he's not talking about them.
But they're the ones who he has to ask to delay the project.
Right, but then there's
That's who he's talking about.
right, but then there's other political things that would go on. Anyway, we should move on from this topic.
Well, how about this? Here's another topic that we can move on to. I have a question about this algorithm. The algorithm that was going on in this movie allowed Hydra to take out anyone who posed a threat because it could predict the future. I'm arguing here that it could not predict the ability of Hydra to sway someone's opinion. If you've got someone...
The ability of Hydra.
Hydra's ability to
Hydra's
sway
ability to sway someone's opinion. If you've got somebody who is advanced enough or could become advanced enough that they could be a threat to you, wouldn't you rather try to recruit them than take them out?
I think the idea is that it's like a psychological profile. So like you can psychologically profile serial killers and predict what they're going to do. So you psychologically profile
but Hydra would
heroes
want
or miracles or marvels.
Not necessarily. The thing you had, I brought this very idea up to Sarah earlier because I was with you until she and I talked, and she had a really good point about this.
Brainwashing.
It's only 20 million. Like, I think that's the reason the number is so low, is that there are probably lots of other people that they think that it's not just about how capable they are, it's about whether or not they can be swayed. It's that based on their background, these are the people that are going to be revolutionaries. These are the people that are going to fight.
We didn't get there in our
going to fight you. Yeah, but we did get it in the movie. When you start putting people together, and I'm sure Dan lost his mind at the name drop. When you put people when you put people together like Stephen Strange and Bruce Banner, you're talking about people that you and I, knowing what we know, could be like, well, they're not going to be manipulated by Hydra.
Exactly. That they did make a point of that in the movie.
And I think that's why Nick Fury wasn't someone they went to, because I think they probably knew Nick Fury wouldn't turn.
They specifically stated that the targets were people such as the Avengers, so that makes sense to me
exactly.
now. Now you've quelled my problems with that. I don't have a problem with that now.
Well, thanks, Sarah, because I was with you.
Okay.
And they did brainwash a guy, so presumably they could brainwash other people, but it's just so much easier to eliminate everyone
Yeah.
But it makes sense since
Oh, you're right. It
Kat,
might not
you
even have
told me.
anything to Will. With Will, you're right. They did brainwashed Bucky. Yeah, you're right. Okay, cool.
Because you mentioned Kat the other day when we were talking about this. You're like, why is that number so low, 20 million? Like you thought it would have been higher. That perfectly
That's
kind
why.
of works in that.
Dan, Steve, you guys have not talked nearly as much as the three of us have. This is the problem with
You've
putting
not
3 guys in a
told
room and 2 guys in
20 million
cyberspace. I hope it's warm enough for you guys there in cyberspace.
Cold
Ask
Dan
Arnim Zola.
cyberspace.
Steve and Dan, each of you, please bring up something else that you were really hoping we talk about that you think is important and pertinent and that we need to get to before we end. And then we're going to call it a close. Although I feel like we could go another hour if we had the time. Steve, you go first, man. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I just wanted to bring up what I said was my best thing, which was the way that this film handles like the persistence question, which is basically how is a person the same throughout their life. So you get like references to Nick Fury's grandfather and how he remembers that from the past, and you have Steve dealing with what the past was and what the present is now. Bucky getting brainwashed, and Black Widow saying, "Who do you want me to be?" because she doesn't have like a definitive personality. So the whole film is just like asking this question of who are people really, and what events caused them to change and what events caused them to stay the same.
Yeah, and again, I love that Captain America manages to stay the same the way he does because what he deals with in this movie, and it's with all the other stuff going on, it's kind of easy to lose it for a second. Is really sad. I mean, like he did kind of die for nothing. Hydra, he didn't defeat them. You know, that he's still dealing with the same thing that the one thing he could take solace in was, okay, my whole time is gone, my friends are all gone, but at least I stopped Hydra. No, you didn't. And in fact, they're worse than they were.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they're worse than they were, but he did stop the immediate takeover.
Yeah, the immediate
so
threat, sure.
He did manage to prolong the potential. So he didn't die for
No, not for
nothing.
but like he goes away and the world goes to crap, basically.
Yeah.
But he also has the ability to now that he's
I think if the
back,
helicarriers had managed what they were trying to do, he would have felt like he died for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, he probably has this tinge of regret that he lost out on these years, only to find out now that the threat he thought he was dying to vanquish is still around.
Yeah.
You know, something that I think is interesting about Captain America was the line where he says that he's too busy to essentially have a personal life. So I like this idea that maybe he can't, or maybe he doesn't really have anything to live for, so he just throws himself into his work. And throughout this movie, he finds faith that he can have in someone else, whether that be the Black Widow or Nick Fury. So I'm not sure if I'm talking about the same thing Steve is, but
No, we're not.
Well, keep in mind.
But Steve is right that everybody's dealing with the question of who are they really, and I like that because these people, and that's a lot of why I said these people are coming alive and all feeling like real people to me. Everybody goes through, if not a character arc, at least a self-defining arc.
Well, and I think Vince was also on the right track because a major thing about World War II Cap is that he had a reason to fight someone, which is the Nazis were taking over, the Nazis were bullies, and Steve didn't like that. In this film, Steve is fighting, but he doesn't know why because he doesn't really have an enemy for most of the film. He's kind of
he doesn't have any information.
Right.
You know, he knows who the bad guys are in World War II. It's clean cut. And that's why he doesn't like Nick Fury's way of doing things. And ultimately, he's right because it's actually Hydra's way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. And Hydra's been very manipulative.
Dan, what's a thing that we didn't talk about?
ponies.
We didn't talk about ponies, but I don't remember any of those in this movie. You know, Vince, you have a tendency to reach for things that aren't in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
You really need to quit overthinking it.
I was reaching for popcorn throughout that whole movie.
Yeah? Did you buy some?
Yes.
Were you able to get some? Well, see, that's not reaching because you had it right there. Unless it was like really far away.
I was reaching. I set it up with the guy in front of me, and he got really angry. Anyway, Dan,
Okay, sorry,
you
go
were
ahead,
saying?
I really liked the way Captain America's new costume in this looked. The stealthy look for it was really cool. And this movie did something that might have annoyed me in any other superhero movie that wasn't this gripping and this well done. People complain a lot about the Spider-Man movies especially, and I'm one of them, that Spider-Man always has to have his mask ripped off in an obligatory scene so we can be like, hey, there's the actor's face we paid for. And Chris Evans is running around without the cap suit on in a lot of the action scenes here. But I didn't have a problem with it at all because the action scenes were so gripping. I cared about the people so much, and it made sense that he was caught in situations where he was in his street clothes and he had to immediately run with the shield and do things. So I don't
It
know.
also helps that he has no secret identity.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also really like something to add on to what you're saying. I really like when Batroc challenges him and he takes his helmet off,
Yeah.
because it's not just a mask; it's also a helmet. So it's kind of like saying, "I'm not afraid of any pain that you could inflict on me because I'm better than
He
you."
asked him, I thought you'd be more than just a shield.
I also like that Captain America takes out Batroc with a Batroc move.
Yeah, I
Was
thought
cool.
that too.
I was like, hey, wait a minute, you're really adaptable. Well, man, you know what? That's another thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, that Captain America is just really smart in this movie.
Yes.
Like the way he picks up on stuff, and nothing's handed to him. You know, just like with the first movie, except that here I felt like he was actually doing a lot of really clever stuff. In the first movie, I felt like he was capable of it, but I felt like the script often didn't come up with anything clever for him to do. Here, like all the things that they show us with inserts. I mean, like the storytelling visually is fantastic. In the elevator where he's picking up on like the guy sweating and the guy reaching for his gun, and I mean, like if I was in that elevator, I might not have been that perceptive, and then I'd be dead, but not Captain America. And
And he
yeah,
picks
that's
up on
great.
it before it gets ultimately too crowded to really be. And like, there's too many people in this elevator.
I
They
think
got
he-
on for a purpose.
I think he waited for everyone that was gonna be in that elevator to get
I
there.
thought he did too. He was like,
Well, he did.
Here we go.
That
Everyone
And
that
he
can
said,
get in
if
here.
anybody wants to get out before we
Yeah.
get started.
That was such a great line.
Yes, it
But
was.
let me mention this right before we end here. I'd like to say that the line that I just mentioned a minute ago was, I thought you were more than just a shield. It's kind of a double entendre because in the end, Black Widow says how about that other woman? You could date her, and he goes, well, she's no nurse, and she's like, you're no shield agent. Like it was kind of saying, you are Captain America. You're more than this. You came before Shield. You're kind of like even the foundation of what Shield was before it was.
You know, did you guys have this, Dan and Steve? I thought that maybe the idea with Peggy co-founding Shield was that Captain America Shield was what was the basis they used to name it.
That's cool.
That's a cool idea. Yeah.
I think they
I
even
hadn't thought of
confirmed
that.
that in like the Peggy Carter one shot they did, didn't they?
Oh, did they? I didn't see
Because
that.
they had like a phone call from Dominic Cooper's Stark, and he said that you're gonna help me run Shield, and it had to do with Captain America. So I thought that's where that came from.
And that would play into that double entendre.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think
so
they.
good.
I think that they were deliberately, Brandon, doing what you were saying.
Okay.
That Captain America Shield and the organization are connected,
That's
You know,
cool.
I always felt like calling the organization.
and protection, and the fact that Shield isn't really protecting people like they think they are. You know, all
Right.
of that.
I always felt like the Shield name was a cool thing to call it. Let's call it Shield, but making all of the individual words try to make sense, I was like, this is stupid. Just call the organization Shield. At least now I feel like there's a reason to try to make the word Shield into.
Sword is funnier.
But they do that all over the place, though, in real life.
In real life.
In
Yeah,
real
I
life, like
know.
if you want to come up with like a brain for like an android, you're going to call it a brain, but you're going to make that BRAIN stand for something. I've done it myself when coming up for ideas for androids.
Yeah.
This is something I actually do.
I like to call my androids Pinky.
I like to call mine the brain.
See, that's where I was going with that. That was kind of funny.
I like to
was
call
thinking the
my
same
android
thing.
steam powered giraffe.
I like to call my android your mom.
Well, okay.
Momdroid 5000.
Anyway, well, Dan and Steve, I feel like we didn't get to hear enough from you guys.
No, that's okay. I really like the movie and agree with everything that you guys said pretty much. One of the things that we didn't mention that I really liked too was the setup for Agent 13, Peggy's. I forget how they're distant related. It's probably changed now.
She's
But
supposed to be
she-
her niece, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's true anymore.
Yeah, she's the love interest after Captain America is unfrozen the ice in the 60s. She's a descendant of Peggy Carter. She's Sharon Carter, so that was cool.
It
Oh, his
bothered me.
neighbor?
It bothered me that they didn't finish the sentence and call her Sharon Carter at the very
Yeah.
end.
I wish they had, because the audience isn't going to pick up on that. And honestly, that's something I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for that, Dan. I didn't know that.
That's interesting.
No problemo.
You know what? Peggy Carter is still I think in talks to get a TV show. Well, I mean, she's a character.
That'd be
She's not
great.
in talks, but there are talks that character.
They wrote dialogue to where she can be in talks.
Go
about
and get a TV show, and that's not
Back
gonna
in
be.
1945.
That's not supposed to be one of the Netflix shows. That's supposed to be actually a TV show.
That'll be
Hey.
cool because it'll basically probably be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in World War II with the Howling Commandos and stuff, and I am so down for that.
Heck yeah, man!
Yeah, that would be really cool, especially because I think they could probably get a lot of those actors back.
Yeah, definitely.
We need to do more with Dum Dum Dugan because he was cool.
Yes, we do, and he's awesome in the comics as well. I love Dum Dum.
I wish that they'd called them Howling Commandos in the first movie. In fact, when you listen to the director commentary, he calls them Invaders.
He does?
Yeah,
That's strange.
yeah, he calls them the Invaders.
But would they have been Howling Commandos at that point before the initiative of Shield?
Yeah, because in the
Okay.
museum you hear them say Captain America and his Howling Commandos.
Okay, sure.
That's Brandon. You won't know this, but that is a callback to Nick Fury in his Howling Commandos, which was a 40s comic book. Well, no, a 60s
Yeah,
comic
it
book,
was a 60s comic.
but about Nick Fury and his Howling Commando. And so this takes that idea but does it with Captain America because
Gotcha.
Nick Fury's not that old.
I kind of wish they would.
Unless he is. I'm not sure. I still think, Dan, that it's possible that Nick Fury existed in the 40s in this
That would
universe.
be awesome.
He did in the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said that.
I kind of wish they would have made reference to like his dad or granddad or whoever being one of the Howling Commandos, like maybe Nicholas something Fury, like Nicholas B. Fury.
Yeah.
I was like, he's
that'd
named
be-
after his granddad.
Yeah,
Considering
like
they didn't mention his granddad, and I remember things about my granddad is what one of his lines.
Well,
Yeah, that's a good
it's not mentioned that he's in the war, but it could have been.
No, I
Right.
would have liked that, considering they had the Howling Commandos in First Avenger, and this black guy who they never give a name for.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's Nick Fury.
He could have been.
There's a line of Nick Furies that just are
Yeah.
involved in
No, that
this.
makes
That'd be cool.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would.
that could have been his ancestor. Yeah.
You could have made a lineage. It doesn't have to be the same Nick Fury, like like it is in the comic books.
I just want to see someone named Nick Fury chomp on giant cigars. That would be awesome.
That needs to happen.
I want to see a person named Ben Grimm chomp on giant cigar.
My wife, just being funny, said, "Wouldn't it be amusing if Fury, now that he is underground and everybody thinks he's dead, if he got like plastic surgery and then he turned into David Hasselhoff?"
Oh, God.
And I said, "No, Sarah, that's a horrible idea, and nobody would get on board with that." I'm sorry, I meant to mention this earlier. The first time I saw the movie, I kind of didn't like that Nick Fury didn't actually die. And I've come around on it because it plays great in the movie, but I just thought
did
that would have
so
been a
well.
really gutsy move.
Nick Fury fakes his death like every other week in Marvel, so I was like, oh, he's coming back.
I knew he was. I was pretty sure he would probably come back, and was not surprised what he did. But at the same time, I was taking this movie so seriously. I thought there was a chance.
Oh, no, fair
It
enough,
wasn't
yeah.
It wasn't
sells
like
it
Dark
really
Knight,
well.
where there's no way Gordon doesn't, is
Right.
dead. But
I thought there was a chance they were going to kill Captain America in this movie, so I
Oh,
was a
really?
little worried. I was like, oh my god, please don't do that.
no, I knew they wouldn't just because he signed on for 2 more.
Indeed.
But anyway, well, we're gonna have to get going. Vince has already got his keys out, and he's about to drive away. We're not even
Yeah, he's
outside.
about to stick the key in my face.
But
It's just
anyway,
your face. You don't need your face.
Steve and Dan, thanks a bunch for joining us. Again, this was a little bit awkward having 3 guys in a room and 2 guys in cyberspace, and that made it somewhat difficult to have a 5-way conversation. But thanks for what you guys did contribute. Really appreciate you being here. And man, I just this might end up being one of my favorite comic book movies. I'm very
It was
very
a darn
stoked.
good movie.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
I'm going to go this far. I think this is my favorite movie based on a Marvel property so far. I think it's that good.
Yeah, man.
Well, Steve,
Yeah,
give us a last word. Give us a really profound last word, Steve.
Soviets.
Oh,
I guess
it didn't have-
before we close, I did want to
Yeah,
mention: did
say
anyone
words.
besides me laugh at the Pulp Fiction reference at the end?
I didn't catch it. What?
Didn't laugh at the what?
On
Pulp Fiction. I didn't catch
on
it.
Nick Fury's tombstone, it's the quote he uses in Pulp Fiction. The
Oh,
quote from
that's
Ezekiel, "The
awesome.
path of a righteous man."
Wondered
I didn't
what.
even see it.
I wonder. Yeah, well, I read it the second time I saw it, and I wondered what that meant. And I haven't seen Pulp Fiction in so long. Now I'm gonna kick myself for not catching that. That's cool.
Oh, I didn't catch that either. That's awesome.
And the cool thing is that it came from like a video effects guy because they had no idea what to put on his tombstone.
That he keeps saying in Pulp Fiction. That's
Vengeance will
man,
rain down upon us.
that's great.
I will rain my vengeance upon thee.
Well, anyway, we want to thank everybody for being here, and thanks for listening to us. And we will see you again very soon. I'm gonna try to do some more commentaries pretty soon. And Dan, miss you, buddy. I hope I can have you on again in the near future.
Yeah, I miss you too, Dan.
And
I miss everybody.
Steve. And I want to announce this would be a good place to announce this. Steve is going to be joining me regularly in the fall when the Gotham TV show starts on Fox. We're going to be doing Gotham discussions for you, so look forward to that. But Steve, I hope you and I can do something sometime before that on some more Batman comics. In the meantime, I'm Captain Logan. This was Vincent Haskins.
Yeah, that's me.
This was Brandon Grimm.
Absolutely.
Steve Baxi.
I've just been promoted.
And the notorious Dan Torrey.
I'm professionally boring.
We'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening. Bye.